Well, perhaps surprisingly, considering the global climate change summit starting in Glasgow in just a few days' time, today's budget was not dominated by spending on climate. The government did, of course, announce a whole raft of new climate measures, including its net zero strategy just last week. So was it inevitable, given the post-COVID environment, that green measures would be overshadowed in today's budget? Kate, to you first, your reaction to that?
I think that the climate emergency should have been at the heart of this autumn budget. Obviously, there were a raft of policies announced last week, but without the money to back up those policies, they're just words on paper, and that doesn't lead to any action at all. And that means that the climate targets that those policies are supposed to be hitting just simply aren't going to be reached without the money to back them up. It felt very much like Rishi Sunak was much more interested in investing in Prosecco than he was the planet.
And Stuart, your thoughts after today's budget? Of course, a lot of criticism at the lack of green spending, of course, just days ahead of COP as the host nation. What did you make of that? Was that odd to you, the optics of that, perhaps?
I think one of the things for me is, and Kate touched on this, you can't look at the budget in isolation. I think you've got to look at it alongside the net zero strategy. And look, there are still some big funding gaps there that need to be filled, as Kate said. But I also look at it through the lens of my sector, my industry. There were some things in the budget. So, for example, the announcement about business rate investment relief for on-site renewables or green technologies, that will definitely help our sector get towards net zero. There is still a lot more to be done, but it wasn't all disappointment. But there are still those funding gaps missing, and a strategy without funding isn't a strategy. We've got to have the funding that goes with it as well.
Yeah, Kate, to you next. As Stuart referenced there, you know, the government has allocated £30 billion to create new green industries of the future since March, as the Chancellor referenced once again today. Do you think that budget day is simply far too complex a day, far too complex in terms of its level of announcements in public spending to make those sorts of big green announcements?
I think no, because I do think that the green announcement should have been very clear from the outset. The moment that he stood up, he should have been talking about the climate crisis. We're days away from COP. We can see that extreme weather events are happening today. They're happening every single day all around the world. We're hearing from UN scientists with new reports every single day saying how we, the UK, but also globally, are not hitting the climate targets that we should be in order to try and keep temperature rises to 1.5. The Chancellor and this government do need to be doing much more than making announcements and saying targets. They need to be allocating the money to back them up.
And Stuart, just lastly on this issue, what did you make of the decision to cut air passenger duty by 50% on domestic flights? Of course, fuel duties are almost at a record high at the moment. Low-income families are really struggling. Was this a surprise to you?
I'm going to say it was a surprise. As someone who actually took a decision a few years ago not to take domestic flights precisely for the environmental reasons, I was very surprised by that one. And yeah, that came a bit left field, I thought.